Hello, I'm Graham. Welcome back to Man vs Film, and this is going to be a top 10 of movies that you can watch right now on Netflix US for the month of December 2019. So let's get started. Number 10, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Raoul Duke is a drug-addled gonzo journalist. He is sent to cover a motorcycle race as an article for his magazine. But then the situation escalates into him and his psychotic attorney searching for the American dream, aided by almost every drug known to man in this boot of their red convertible. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is one of my favourite Terry Gilliam movies. It's got great performances from Benicio del Toro and Johnny Depp in the lead roles, and it is a movie that doesn't really have much of a story. It's just a series of drug-fueled nightmarish visions that happen throughout the movie. It is incredibly funny. It is incredibly enigmatic. It is just strange and weird throughout. And if you haven't seen this absolutely amazing movie, I think you should. Number 9, The Crow. A poetic guitarist, Eric Draven, is brought back to life by a crow a year after he and his fiancée are murdered. The crow guides him through the land of the living and leads him to his killers. One by one, Eric gives these thugs a taste of their own medicine. However, their leader, Top Dollar, a world-class crime lord who will dispatch his enemies with a Japanese sword and joke about it later, will soon learn the legend of the crow and the secret to the vigilante's invincibility. Alex Proyas directs, Brandon Lee stars in this amazing movie that could never capitalise on its success at the time. Of course, the tragedy that happened to Brandon Lee kind of overshadowed the movie. The sequels that came after it all kind of sucked, worse than the one before it. And it's a movie that's perpetually been hinted at being remade at some point. But the original is here. It has quotable lines, great action, direction. It has everything you could possibly want. And if it's a movie that you've never seen before, you're so lucky if you're going to check out The Crow for the first time. I'd love to know your thoughts on this one. Number 8, Fallen. Detective John Hobbs is convinced that when killer Edgar Reese is executed, all his troubles are over. But when people he knows and people in the streets start to sing the same tune that Reese sang in the gas chamber, and those people taunt him, he is told that maybe the cursed fallen angel Azazel is behind it all. Azazel is cursed to roam the earth without a form, and he can switch bodies by just contact alone. When Hobbs is forced to kill a man possessed by Azazel, he must clear his name while protecting his family and others from the evil, vengeful spirit. It sounds a little bit trite and silly and genre specific, and it kind of is, but you throw in Denzel Washington and John Goodman and you have a pretty spectacular supernatural thriller. I love Fallen. It's a movie that I've gone back to many times, and I just love the whole idea of it. The way it starts and flashbacks to tell the story, the crazy goings on, that Rolling Stones tune that just keeps coming back and taunting it. There is some fantastic scenes, like the time Azazel shows himself to John on the street by just touching all these passers-by as they start to continue the song throughout them all while staring evilly at our protagonist. This is a great movie if you like kind of supernatural stuff like that. And of course, if you don't, it has Denzel Washington. Number 7, American History X. Derek Vinyard is paroled after serving 3 years in prison for brutally killing 2 black men who tried to break into his truck. Through his brother's narration, we learn that before going to prison, Derek was a skinhead and a leader of a violent white supremacist gang that committed acts of racial crime throughout LA. And his actions greatly influenced Danny. Reformed and fresh out of prison, Derek severs contact with the gang and becomes determined to keep Danny from going down the same violent path as he did. Tony Kaye directed this absolute masterpiece of a movie with a terrific turn from Edward Norton, who was just on a roll at this point of just knocking performances out the park. And this is one of those movies that I've not seen a lot of times because it really does get under my skin and affect me, and it's not something that I want to subject myself to too much. But whenever I watch it, I realise just how stunning and important a movie it is. Number 6, The Last Boy Scout. When the girl that Detective John Halbrecht is protecting gets murdered, the boyfriend of the murdered girl, ex-footballer Jimmy Dix, attempts to investigate and solve the case. What they discover is that there is a deep-seated corruption going on between a crooked politician and the owner of a pro football team. I love this movie. I love buddy cop comedies type action movies, and this has one of the best ones. Damon Wayans, Bruce Willis together. Willis is a hardened detective who just has a crappy rundown life. This ex-football player who had everything and kind of threw it away, go on a journey to find out who killed his girlfriend. It is ridiculously bad taste, it's ridiculously filled with action, great one-liners, and is just a terrifically pleasing movie, which has one of the best openings I think I've ever seen in a film. Number 5, The Grinch. In the town of Whoville, human-like creatures called Whos are filled with excitement about celebrating Christmas. The only one who isn't amused is a cantankerous green-furred creature called the Grinch, who has a heart 2 sizes too small and lives in a cave on top of Mount Crumpet, just north of Whoville. Illumination's animated adaptation of The Grinch is a rather fun yet kinda toothless affair. I always like to throw on a Christmas movie at this time of year, and I thought this is the perfect one, not just to sit and watch, but to sit and wrap presents to. The one that you can sit down and tune in and out of. It has fun moments, it's rather inoffensive, you can tell the story easily, not as good as the Ron Howard live action one in my opinion, but still a good Christmas movie to get you in the spirit of this festive season. Number 4, Earthquake Bird. In 1989, Tokyo, Lucy Fly, an enigmatic expat haunted by the painful past, enters into an intense relationship with Teji, a handsome yet similarly troubled local photographer. Lucy's exterior begins to crack when a naive newcomer, Lily, becomes entangled in their lives and ends up missing, suspected dead. This is another movie that's told in flashback mode. We have our main character who is being interrogated by the Japanese police about the disappearance of her friend, and it basically flashes back to when she meets Tenji, the relationship that builds from there, as well as the instigation of this naive youngster who comes into it and just, well, three's a crowd, as we've heard before, and things just twist and turn, and we kind of know at the start that the girl is missing, presumed dead, and she may have had something to do with it. Tenji may have something to do with it, but throughout the movie we're going to see the dynamics between the group, what happened to them, and ultimately a fairly decent conclusion. It feels a little bit as if it's riding the crest of, say, Gone Girl or the Girl on the Train, but it's not as good as either of those kind of movies. It's an interesting one-time watch, and that's about it. Number 3, Fire in Paradise. On the 8th of November 2018, a fire broke out in California near the town of Paradise. Over the course of a few hours, the campfire grew into the country's deadliest wildfire in over a century. Through first-hand footage of the disaster, interviews with the survivors and responders, Fire in Paradise retells the survivors' stories from that day. This is a fairly short documentary, just under an hour, and it is fascinating. I couldn't believe what I was watching. In this short period of time, I wanted more. You start to hear the story of this fire, and it feels typical in the way it's telling a documentarian story, but then it starts to give you the first-hand footage of what actually happened, and it is shocking, really terrifying, the insane amount of fire that just spread so quickly, how things escalated into worse situations, how people were lucky to survive this horrendous disaster. It was something that I couldn't take my eyes off, and I felt emotionally invested in some of the characters. I could have done with more stories of the survivors. I could have done with a piece of longer documentarian stuff to really highlight everything about it, but in its truncated form it still packs a punch. Number 2, Iron Sky, The Coming Race. 20 years after the events of Iron Sky, the former Nazi moon base has become the last refuge of mankind. Earth was devastated by a nuclear war, but buried deep under the wasteland lies a power that could save the last of humanity, or destroy it once and for all. You can't argue against the fact that Iron Sky was absolutely bonkers, yet somehow kind of awesome at the same time. Its ridiculous tale, its tongue-in-cheek nature, and the fact that it just aimed further than it could reach, but still kind of attained that goal, was rather admirable. I was looking forward to the second one because it promised Well, Hitler riding a T-Rex. This is the kind of movie that you are going to hate or you're going to love it. Personally, it's my brand of complete bonkers and crazy. I laughed my head off throughout it. Even the cult of Steve Jobs was ridiculously funny. And I'm really looking forward to a part 3 of this to see just how far these people can go, more than anything. If you liked Iron Sky, you're going to love this one. If you didn't, stay well clear. Number 1, The Irishman. Frank, the Irishman Sheeran, is a man with a lot in his mind. The former Labour Union high official and hitman learned to kill serving in Italy during the Second World War. He now looks back on his life and the hits that defined his mob career, maintaining connections with the Buffalino crime family, in particular the part he claims to have played in the disappearance of the lifelong friend Jimmy Hoffa, the former president of the inaugural Brotherhood of Teamsters, who mysteriously vanished in late July 1975 at the age of 62. I have been eagerly awaiting Martin Scorsese's latest movie because it brings De Niro and Pacino together once more, because it has Joe Pesci back in an acting role for the first time since 2010, and it delivers. It is fantastic. Its 3.5 hour running time zips by. You are captivated the full way through, watching these characters just live their life, tell their tales, being stuck in this underworld of crime. It's just captivating. De Niro is the best he's been in years as well, as he portrays this man who finds himself just in situations. He never plans to get into them, he just ends up there. The relationships between all the characters is wonderful and they all give amazing performances. Now, the big highlight about this movie was the de-aging, and it's some of the best I've ever seen. But also in comparison with that, the aging of the characters is terrific too. If you haven't watched The Irishman yet, you need to get on it. I'm pretty sure most of you, the film fanatic community out there, have already checked it out, but in case you haven't, it is well worth your time. So there we have it, 10 great movies to keep you busy during this festive period. I hope you find something there that you want to check out, something that you enjoy, and I will see you next month on Man vs. Film.